In this video, I'm going to be helping Kian here build an A-level maths tutoring. Kian, you're right now doing GCSE maths and you want to transition into A-level, right?
That's right, yes.
We don't actually want to be targeting students.
Yes.
So I would say parents of students. You can't guarantee everyone an A or A star.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like that's the stupidest thing ever. You just can't. Students are different. Some people just don't care. So that's where the conditions come in. If I told you, I'm going to give you 10K in 10 years, do you care? It's going to be nice. Eventually you're going to get there.
Yeah.
But if I told you I'm going to give you 10K tomorrow, 100 times better, right?
Sure,
Time frame, extremely important. The first thing that we need to look at when crafting an offer is, Kian, you're right now doing GCSE maths and you want to transition into A-level, right?
That's right, yes.
So the first thing that we need to look at when crafting an offer is who are we actually going to be targeting? So who would you say is your ideal client persona?
I would say my ideal client is someone who's aiming to achieve an A or an A star in A level. So kind of that top band of client and kind of maybe staggering on that B or C at the moment. Mm-hmm. And they want to achieve that A or A star so they can go to like a top university or want to pursue a career in STEM. So for example, engineering, medicine, dentistry, or even finance. And students who are already extremely ambitious. Those are the students that kind of I've had the most success with. And yeah, that's probably my ideal student at the moment.
Okay. But one caveat here is that we don't actually want to be targeting students, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So I would say parents of students.
Yeah, of course. So like
aiming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same like ambitious parents who want, high achieving parents who want their children to do very well and understand that in today's day and age, like academics is profound and it's very important to stand out. And in order to stand out, a student has to get an A or an A star because everybody gets, B's and C's nowadays.
Okay. Outside of just STEM, what kind of career paths are we looking at? Like medicine, anything like that? Anything specific?
Yeah, so STEM includes medicine, dentistry. Yeah. But yeah, so specifically medicine, dentistry, engineering, obviously within STEM as well. And then outside of that, like finance, law, stuff like that, that just requires good analytical skills, which is obviously a skill that you develop by having a good foundation in maths.
Okay, cool. So obviously for your solution, we want to help students score as high as possible on A-level maths in order to basically be admitted, right, to get into these.
So into the top Russell Group universities, like, we obviously have Oxford and Cambridge, but then we have the top unis like LSE, UCL, Imperial, all have very high standards. So yeah, having a very good very good knowledge in maths will definitely boost their chances of going to a great university and obviously being able to pursue a degree of their choice.
Okay, cool. Now, in order to get into all these fields, what score do they actually need to get on A-level, or like what grade?
At the very, very worst, they need to get an A. At the very worst, they need to get an A. But a lot of universities, obviously with an offer, depending on your career choice or degree choice, if you want to do STEM or finance, a lot of them require an A star in maths. So then even if you get an A, then you're already closing your doors out to the top universities like Imperial, UCL, LSEs. So at the very least an A, because that still keeps your doors open to other Russell Group universities such as University of Nottingham, Warwickshire, University of Birmingham, still top universities. But I would say anything less than an A, you're kind of closing all doors to any Russell Group.
So for the offer statement, right, when we're crafting the offer, it's important that we model after what they truly want, right? Want to present people their ideal outcome, then that's how we differentiate ourselves from everybody else, right? Everybody else is promising them, listen, I'm going to give you like 10 hours of math tutoring, right? I'm the best tutor, I get all these results, you get 10 hours with me, right? Instead of that, we want to model after what they truly want. So this is how we craft the offer statement. We'll guarantee you a slash, where's the slash here? No?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Slash A star A level maths. Now, obviously, I don't think this needs to be said. I'll say anyway. You can't guarantee everyone an A or A star.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like that's the stupidest thing ever. You just can't. Students are different. Some people just don't care. They buy a tutor and they just either don't show up. They, some kids are more gifted than others. I don't want to say too much here, but is what it is. So we do need conditions here, right? Because everybody knows you can't guarantee it to absolutely everyone. So that's where the conditions come in. So here we want to basically break down everything that needs to take place in order for us to be comfortable to guarantee them an A or A star. Now, usually there's two buckets here. One is what prerequisites they need before joining the program, and the other is what actions they need to take while in the program. Right? So if we focus on the prerequisites, what are some of the indicators that before you take someone on, you can either ask them or, check it, that would make sense for you to guarantee that A or A star?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, probably two things to guarantee an A or an A star is getting at least an 8 or a 9 at GCSE level, so just before A level. But also their current A level grade must be at the very worst a grade C, because I feel like, at the end of the day, we're not magicians. If you come to us at a D or an E, the chances of you getting an A are fairly low. So we want to be realistic with what we offer. So I think at the very worst a grade C. That way it gives us room to increase by 2 grades to an A, or potentially even 3 grades to an A star.
Okay, cool. Outside of that, anything else you want to check before taking them in?
So I think, that's the most important thing for me, that they come in they have to have a very strong knowledge of maths.
Okay, cool. Now, if you focus on once they actually are inside the program, what do they need to do in order for the guarantee to stand place?
Yeah, so of course, obviously a big thing is they actually have to show up, right?
Okay.
They have to show up to lessons. So it's important that we see they're showing up, so we know they're putting in the work. So I would say we need at least an 85% attendance rate. Just to their regular mandatory lessons. I say 85 because obviously we understand things come up, family events, birthdays, etc., and people get unwell. So I think 85 is very reasonable. But I think with regards to homework, so doing the work outside the classroom, I would say 100% of the homework needs to be done. And the reason why I say 100% is because lessons just aren't enough to get an A or an A star. It's what happens in the other 5 days of the week where you're not getting a lesson or you're not getting taught. And that's where your independent study actually comes in. So I would say a big part of our system and why we're so confident in this is because students do the independent work outside of lessons, and that includes the homework.
Okay, cool. Anything else you need from their side? Anything you can think of, or is that pretty much it?
Another one would be, we obviously have support sessions weekly, and that's like an optional support session. It's not one of the mandatory 2 hours you would get a week, but in my experience, as good as you are in maths or in your academics, there's always something someone like me could provide advice on. So I would say at least attend one support session a month just to get extra help, whether it's maths or your academics in general or just structuring a revision. That way we know you're using our resources and our services to the fullest.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. So if there's nothing else to add, we can go back to the offer now. So let's say someone comes in, they've got a C right now, they got like an 8 in GCSE, and let's assume they're going to attend the lessons, right? They're going to do the work. How much time / how many lessons do you think you'd need to get them to that A or A star?
I would say to confidently get them in a place where they are like around that A, if they're coming in at a C, which is probably the target. If someone comes in at a C, I want to get them to an A first. I would say I would need at least 12 weeks with them. I would say the first 4 weeks is kind of optimizing what they already have. So kind of the system they have in place, how they revise, and just optimizing that. And then what happens after that is we kind of will go through the processes of teaching them the real like A star types of questions and topics, which really what's differentiating the student of where they are now to where they want to be. And also it gives us a lot of time to build onto what structure they already have, come up with revision plans, and help them understand what they need to do outside of lessons as well.
Okay, cool. 12 weeks, are we talking like 1, 2 lessons per week, 3 lessons?
I think with getting an A or an A star, you're trying to be in the top 1% of student. And as someone who wants to get an extraordinary grade, we need to do things that the average student doesn't do. So that's why I feel like 2 lessons a week, 2 hours a week would be ideal, would be perfect. Because 2 hours, the second lesson kind of always rebuilds off what we've done in the first lesson. What we found in the past, if it's just 1 hour a week, students can come on a Monday, 6 days in between, then they come the Monday after, and they've kind of already forgotten what they've done in the previous lesson. So that's why we feel kind of 2 lessons a week is the sweet spot.
Okay.
But obviously on top of that, we obviously want students to do a lot of their independent work as well.
Okay. Are those going to be group lessons or one-to-one?
So the lessons, they're going to be very small group classes, but the way we group is based off ability. So the students are of a similar ability to where your child is today, and all aiming for that same grade, so an A or an A star. So you kind of get the best out of being in an environment where everyone's ambitious, everyone's aiming for that same grade. So you have people to motivate you when you're feeling down. But also at the same time, the groups are so small, everyone's cameras are on, everyone's unmuted. They can speak whenever they want. So it's almost the same as a one-to-one. Your questions will never be unanswered. There's always a way you can get help from us because it's such a small class.
Okay, cool. That's really, really good. What about support after the group lessons? Do you feel like they need any support after that? Once the lessons are over or / in between the lessons?
Absolutely. So we have a 7-day student support channel. We run it on a server called Discord. Every student gets a private support channel where they can reach out to someone like me or someone from the team. We literally have one person who works in the business. His only job is to reply to students within 15 minutes of them messaging their query. Okay. Whether that's a question about maths, a homework, or just revision structure in general, because obviously we recognize the only time a student needs help is not just in a lesson, but when they're revising independently. So that's one of the best ways they can get help from us. And then on top of that, we obviously have a minimum of an hour every week of the support calls, where it's kind of like a live Q&A. A student comes and they ask their question, they can get their answer, and they can leave straight away. So there's no obligation for them to stay for an hour. And again, it's a great way to get live interaction with me or any one of the teachers, just to get that personalized help.
Okay. What I'm thinking now is, why don't we also include the private support channel in the guarantee?
Okay.
So what I would want to do is, let's say until they are at an A level, right? Until they're at least an A. They obviously are struggling with something still.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
I would try and make them use the support channel. So let's say we include in the guarantee, they need to ask at least, I don't know, 1 question per week, maybe one question per day.
Okay, I like that.
Just, you know what works best way more than me. I'm not a tutor. So how many questions would you tell them it's mandatory that they need to come up with? Because they're struggling with something, right?
Of course. I would say at least 1 question weekly. Whether that's just an interaction of just saying, hey, Kian, like I need your advice on something, or please can you help me out with this? Or whether that's just like, hey, Kian, like I'm struggling structuring my revision, can you help me out with that? So the way I want parents to look at us is look at us as a full academic support system where we focus heavily on maths, because our students are free to ask us any question they want with regards to any one of their, going into university, any advice they have, any advice they want from someone like me who's gone through university or any of our teachers. But obviously our lessons in the week are specific to maths. So there are so many questions a student can ask us. And as I said, from my experience, there's always something we can provide support in.
Okay, cool, awesome. So just to finish the offer statement, right? We'll guarantee you an A/A star and A-level maths. So the finisher will be just in 12 weeks. We always want to add the time frame in there. Because it's important. At the end of the day, people do care about like when is the result gonna come. If I told you, I'm gonna give you 10K in 10 years, do you care? It's gonna be nice. Eventually, you're gonna get there. Yeah. But if I told you I'm gonna give you 10K tomorrow, 100 times better, right?
Sure,
time frame extremely important. Another thing that I would do, not everyone's gonna come at a C level, so I want to make sure that we're also taking care of the kids that are below C, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say the kids that are struggling a bit more. So obviously the guarantee T is A/A star for like everyone that's at least at a C level, right? What about the people that are below C level? What can we give to those people?
Yeah, absolutely. So it requires a slightly different approach when approaching a student who's mathematical ability doesn't come extremely natural to them, because the students at an at a C or a B or even an A, they already have some things dialed in, and it's just about optimizing what they already have, which is completely fine. And the students below that, kind of below a C there, those are the students who feel really overwhelmed with where they're at, kind of confused and not really understanding how to go about the subject. So it requires a slightly different approach, and I feel really confident we can help them, but because it's very unpredictable kind of where we can get them, what I would say is we'll guarantee you at least a 1 grade increase, regardless of where you're at, whatever grade you come in at.
If below C. Cool. And the last thing that we need to look at is avoiding failure and mechanisms, right? Obviously, we crafted the guarantee to make sure that, one, they get results as long as they do the action, right? But one, these are still kids we're talking about, and even if they were adults, they're still human. Stuff is gonna go wrong, right? As long as you're dealing with humans, humans are humans. So what I wanna go through now is just like a client failure scenario. What happens if this goes wrong? What happens if that goes wrong? And what can we do to prevent it, right? Like, sure, they might do something that makes the guarantee not apply to them anymore, but we still want to make sure they get as good of a score as possible.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you can also get a good testimonial, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What are some of the things that you think might go wrong here?
Yeah, so there are a few things that come to mind. The first thing is student just doesn't feel comfortable kind of turning their camera on in the lesson or kind of engaging with the lesson, which is a huge part of our lessons, that we want students to engage with us and feel comfortable in the environment that we put them in. So kind of the way we go about doing this is after the lesson, we allow them to keep their camera off for the first lesson, because we don't want to kind of force them in front of another student. But after the lesson, we'll kind of keep them behind for a couple minutes and just try and warm up to the student, try and start to build that relationship with the student, whether that's just like, hey, like, is there any particular reason why you don't want to turn your camera on? Look, I completely understand with that, but then try and kind of frame it in a nice way that's like, like, we want to interact with you. We want to see your face. We want to make sure you're doing the work. We want to make sure you're improving. So we kind of tell them the benefits to them of them turning their camera on, as opposed to the benefits for us. So that way a student sees, if I do turn my camera on, then it is going to benefit me in the long term as well.
Okay, cool. That makes perfect sense. What else goes wrong?
Another thing is a student misbehaves in class, and I don't feel they're kind of concentrating at all. Maybe they've got gadgets, they've got a phone next to them, and they're just not concentrating. And the way I go about this is, the first way I always go about this is I always speak to the student. I always want to bring parents in as last resort, because I never want the students to feel like, hey, we're snitches, we tell your parents. We never want a relationship like that to be tainted. So it's a very similar way. We speak to the student, we ask them what's going on. We don't assume you're on your phone, we don't assume you're not concentrating. We're just like, hey, how did you find that lesson? Did everything go okay? I noticed you were looking away. Was that because you were maybe confused, or were you just thinking? And then normally they'll engage with us. They'll be like, hey, I was just maybe confused, or I was just looking at my phone. And I'll just be like, hey, thanks for being honest. Like, I just want you to know this is a very comfortable environment for you. If there's anything that we can do better for you, please let us know. Because obviously our job at the end of the day is to make the experience as efficient and as productive as possible. And we need to try and show that to the student as well. So with regards to the mechanisms to avoid failure, as I said, we always try and deal with the student first before going to the parents. But then if we feel, I guess another client failure scenario is persistent bad behavior, persistent, lack of concentration. If it persists, that's when we start to speak to the parents. And the way I usually go about this, I'll just drop a message to you if you're a parent, just saying, hey, do you mind if we speak over the phone for 5 or 10 minutes? I just feel like speaking on the phone is just more human-like as opposed to dropping messages. And I just explain my concerns to the parent where, I feel like he's not going to progress just because of the lack of concentration and the work he's putting in. The way I like to frame it is, we give you all the resources you need to succeed, right? Because we know we've done it 100 times before with many students, but it fundamentally comes down to the student themselves to want to use those resources, right? It's like going to a gym. If you buy a gym membership, you're not guaranteed a six-pack, right? But all the machines are there, all the resources are there in order to succeed. So we do escalate with the parents, but as a last resort, I would say.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. And I'm assuming that you don't do that right away at, on the same lesson, you schedule it for later and
Yes,
you call them up.
absolutely, yeah. It's not the same time.
Okay.
As I said, we try and deal with the student first. If we feel like they're not cooperating and we see the failure persist, then that's when we speak to the parents.
Right. And obviously there's like a million small things that can go wrong. Do you feel like there's any like big thing that, does come up often that we haven't covered yet?
Yes, for sure. So one big thing, I guess, is parents are just, they're not happy with what they're getting. And it's something that we don't experience a lot. To be honest, I don't believe we've experienced it at all since we've had this program running. But it happens. Sometimes parents are just not happy, and we understand that. And the way we go about this, we always like to schedule in a Zoom call with the parent to understand their specific concerns. And the way we do a Zoom call is just because it's face to face. If we need to share our screen and show them things that they don't particularly know yet, it's easy to do that. So we like to schedule in a Zoom call, and I'll just listen to the parent and listen to the parent's concerns for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And then one by one, I would address every concern, because every time that this might happen, I'm very, very confident that it's just a lack of information from the parent, that they don't know that this is actually why we do things, that they're not zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. Because as I said, our system has worked for hundreds of students in the past, and we're very, very confident in what we do. So maybe sometimes it's just a lack of communication, and it's just communicating with that to the parent.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Cool. So I think that pretty much covers everything. You can also DM me the word doc on Instagram, and I will send you this exact template completely for free.